First tonight, the Venezuelan opposition leader, Maria Corina Machado, has given her Nobel Peace Prize medal to President Trump at a meeting at the White House. She said it was in recognition of the unique commitment to Venezuela's freedom. Since U.S. forces seized President Nicolas Maduro in Caracas, Mr. Trump has thanked her on social media, but he's declined to endorse Ms. Machado as Venezuela's new leader. Correspondents say President Trump has so far shown much more interest in Venezuela's vast oil reserves than he has in reviving democratic elections there. They say Ms. Machado will need to bide her time until Mr. Trump decides Venezuela is ready for a democratically elected leader. Meanwhile, the U.S. is working closely with Delcy Rodriguez, the former deputy to Nicolas Maduro, who's now the acting president of Venezuela. She's met all of America's demands, including handing over millions of barrels of oil.
Presented the President of the United States the medal of the Nobel Peace Prize, and I told him this, listen to this. 200 years ago, General Lafayette gave Simón Bolívar a medal with George Washington's face on it. Bolívar since then kept that medal for the rest of his life. Actually, when you see his portraits, you can see the medal there. And it was given by General Lafayette as a sign of the brotherhood between the United States, people of the United States and the people of Venezuela in their fight for freedom against tyranny. And 200 years in history, the people of Bolivar are giving back to the heir of Washington a medal, in this case a medal of the Nobel Peace Prize, as a recognition for his unique commitment with our freedom.
Maria Corina Machado. Well, for more on this, I'm joined now on the line from New York by Arise special correspondent James Blue. Good to see you, James. So Venezuela's opposition leader, Maria Corina Machado, meets Donald Trump at the White House. First of all, before we talk about the medal she gave him, do we know what they discussed at that meeting? Presumably she wants greater personal support from President Trump.
Yeah, she does want more support from President Trump, but we just learned just a few minutes ago, Charles, that while Machado was visiting President Trump, the CIA director, John Ratliff, was actually in Caracas meeting with the Venezuelan interim president. And so it seems as though the U.S. is moving on two tracks, certainly trying to court and trying to make sure the opposition and their leadership are happy and satisfied, but more aggressively dealing with the sort of rump of the Maduro administration and trying to make sure that the oil that the U.S. is trying to extract from the country actually starts flowing. The readout from the meeting by CIA Director Ratliff was that it was actually quite positive, quite encouraging, and sort of full speed ahead. I don't know exactly what that does to Machado's efforts to kind of woo President Trump. However, she did not get any kind of commitment that she would be supported as the potential president for Venezuela. Now, she has done quite a lot, as your package noted, giving him her Nobel Peace Prize, lauding him around the world and wherever she gets the chance. And you would think that such efforts might actually lead to some U.S. movement. But so far, we don't think that is the case. Now, the meeting in the White House, I believe, was about 2.5 hours, and we don't know if she was with President Trump that entire time, but we do know that that was the time that she spent in the White House. Charles, she also went to Capitol Hill, and she's actually in Washington for 4 more days, sort of making the rounds and trying to make the case that the Venezuelan opposition, her party, the opposition, should some way have a role in this transition. So far, it does not seem that way, certainly with the news that we're just getting that the CIA director was with the interim president in Venezuela in Caracas just yesterday.
And of course, Maria Corina Machado gained international prominence by being awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in October in recognition of her long fight for democracy in her country. But as you said, Mr. Trump has failed to endorse her to lead Venezuela. Now she's, of course, given him her Nobel Peace Prize medal. And that's, I mean, beyond whether he's endorsed her or not, that's something he covets, and he's made no secret of wanting it badly, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's made no secret that he wants it. I think he'd like to win it, but if he can sort of grab one and possess it, so be it. I think the thing that we really have to kind of observe, not once has President Trump sort of said movement toward democracy is the goal here. And certainly there's hope that there might be elections. I think President Trump has spoken about elections at some point, but there's been no sort of pledge that we want to make Venezuela democratic. We want to make Venezuela, bring Venezuela back into the fold of sort of regular nations. No, the goal here is to extract as much oil from Venezuela to make Venezuela I don't want to say puppet state of the United States, but certainly make Venezuela a state that the U.S. controls almost completely. And I think what the fear is that if Machado and her party were to come to power, that might lead to some unrest. Some people have said that Venezuela is not organized that way, that she's gotten a lot of popular support. But I believe there's some sense that those who are really aligned with the Maduro regime, those who are real believers in the Hugo Chavez revolution, that if Machado were to take over, that they would sort of wreak havoc on the situation. And therefore, it's much easier, better, and you can keep things sort of in place with the former vice president serving as president. And so we'll just have to see. I think the other thing, Charles, that's very important, this status quo doesn't require U.S. troops on the ground. And I think if there was any move to try to move Machado into office, that might require an increased level of U.S. support. And at this moment, there's just no call for that, and really no heart for that. I think the U.S. will stay at sea. The blockade will continue. I think they seized a ship yesterday, and it's all sort of systems go with the team they have in place right now.
Well, I mean, James, I don't know what it looks like to Americans and to people like you, who's a correspondent in America and is, of course, American. But to many international onlookers, I mean, it all seems extraordinary and a quite bizarre moment that she would hand over the medal to Donald Trump. Because, I mean, on the day that she won the Nobel Peace Prize, she was clear that it was a tribute to the suffering of the Venezuelan people.
Yeah, she's definitely flipped. And I think she's flipped because she's trying to reach someplace within Donald Trump's sort of psyche and within his inner circle to try to get them to give some indication that at some point she will be able to take over, or that her party will be able to take over. Very interestingly, the interim president who met with the CIA director yesterday, she's played it very, very, very well by getting the oil companies and by really briefing the security forces and the military in Venezuela, and by supporting what the U.S. wants. There seems to be a working relationship, and people seem to be very satisfied that they are getting what they need. as long as they get what they need, I am told that there will be no switching, there will be no sort of trading, and that the opposition will just have to wait. The opposition is in a really hard spot. You cannot upset or cannot go against the great power that has liberated your country and taken out the leader of your country. To do so, I think, would place them in peril, certainly given how mercurial President Trump is. That would be a really bad place to be. So I think they just have to ride it out. They have to wait. They have to take that sort of second seat, knowing that everything that they've hoped for, wished for, and were planning for, and everything that they were willing to give up the Nobel Peace Prize for remains out of their grips for now.
About the mercurial nature of President Trump, I mean, is there a sense that the fact that she went on to accept the Nobel Prize when Mr. Trump felt it was rightfully his could have impinged on his perception of her?
No, I don't think so, Charles. I think they've had a good relation. And, the US actually helped her get to Oslo so she could accept the prize. They sort of whisked in the cover of darkness and got her off Venezuela, got her to another undisclosed island, and she was able to travel internationally to Norway to pick up the prize. I think one of the sticking points now, my sense is that she would like to return to Venezuela. And I do not think that there's been a lot of support from the administration, certainly not logistical, to sort of help get her back to her country. I think they believe that if she were to go back, that would create another potential sort of power source on the island. If you notice, we haven't seen much of the man who ran on her ticket for her campaign. And so I think they feel that they need to sort of keep her away for a while longer as they sort of get things set up. I think the feeling is, from the people I've spoken to, that if they can get the oil flowing, if they can figure out ways to get more money back into the Venezuelan economy, that the people will just be happy that things are moving, things are working again, they are making money, the inflation is falling, and that may sort of temper any needs for having Machado and her party, which did rightfully win the election, that will sort of prevent that from that demand from bubbling up, and therefore that they can sort of keep people satisfied with an economic turnaround, which may not at this moment make it possible for a political turnaround in terms of Venezuelans being ruled by the people of their choice, like Machado and her party.
Well, stay with us, James. Would like to get your take on this next story. It is, of course, in the United States, where protests have continued over the presence of thousands of masked and armed immigration officers in the city of Minneapolis, despite a threat by President Trump to invoke the centuries-old Insurrection Act. A focus for the protests has been a federal building housing the agents, one of whom shot a woman dead last week. Mr. Trump criticized local Democratic leaders for failing to stop what he called professional agitators from committing insurrection. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz has accused the Trump administration of launching a campaign of retribution.
In the head.
Let's be very clear. I've seen conduct from ICE that is disgusting and is intolerable. If it were your city, it would be unacceptable there too. And for anyone that is taking the bait tonight, stop. That is not helpful. Go home. We cannot counter Donald Trump's chaos with our own brand of chaos. ICE can leave, and this massive deployment can come to an end. We have filed litigation to hopefully make it so, and at the same time, I'm deeply concerned that we don't have that kind of time. This is already the second shooting that we've had in a week.
And Arise correspondent James Blue is still with me on the line from New York. Thanks for staying with us, James. So a lot of criticism being leveled against Donald Trump over his decision to send thousands of masked and armed immigration officers to Minneapolis. And the protests seem to be continuing there. Tell us more.
Yeah, Charles, from all accounts, it seems as though Minnesota, as someone I've spoken to says, is really descending into a civil war. On one side, you have all of these federal troops who've come to Minnesota to round up undocumented and people who are in the country illegally. And on the other side, you have, many, many Minnesotan residents, many protesters, and people who believe that ICE is acting and doing things illegally and also doing things harmfully, resulting both in 2 people being shot and 1 person being killed. And so this is sort of the context, Charles, where there's just a lot of tension and a lot of confrontation. I think things were a little quieter last night, although things have this morning started. Fortunately, the weather is getting colder, and the hope is that that's going to send people inside over the course of the weekend. But this is a real flashpoint and a real sort of place where you can see sort of the reality of the Trump policy coming head to head with the people who live across the United States and the people who some want and support the president's efforts, and others who not only don't support it, but are actually out in the streets trying to challenge, protest, and stand up for the rights of people who are being snatched off the street and taken away. This is a very, very dangerous situation. It's very easy to see how it could spill out of control and possibly hurt many, many others. But for now, there is basically, I think we're just waiting. If anything sort of major were to happen in Minnesota, I think President Trump would very quickly call the Insurrection Act, which would then allow him to move U.S. military troops straight to the streets of Minnesota. We all hope that doesn't happen, but given the state of the standoff, given the sort of animosity that all sides sort of bring to each other, it certainly seems possible that that is something that the president may be forced to do. And if he does, it's really sort of unprecedented. It happened most recently in 1992 during the Los Angeles riots. You'll remember that. And there's the Denny, this was in response to the Rodney King video where he was shown beaten by 4 or 5 police officers. And then Reginald Denny was brought out and dragged out of his car and beaten to death, or actually just beaten to a pulp. He did survive. And so that is the context that would potentially cause President Trump to decide U.S. troops need to go in. And just to be very clear, Charles, U.S. troops are barred from doing any type of domestic policing work unless there is the invoking of the Insurrection Act. And so that's what this standoff really is about.
James, thanks very much indeed. James Blue is Arise special correspondent. He was talking to me on the line from New York.